the iron doors of the Paris temple slammed shut with the cold finality of a coffin lid. It was the morning of Friday, October 13th, 1307, while King Philip's soldiers dragged thousands of terrified knights into the dungeons. 18 ships silently cut through the fog at La Rochelle, carrying a cargo that would change the trajectory of Western civilization. Only hours earlier, the king's men had smashed open the vaults of the Paris temple, expecting to find a hoard that would solve the crown's astronomical debts. Instead, they found only cold stone and echoing silence. The greatest military order in Christendom had not fought back. It had simply disappeared, slipping into the Atlantic mist like a ghost into the night. The fall of the Knights Templar was not a slow decay of influence or a gradual loss of relevance. It was a violent surgical fracture. King Philip IV of France, a man drowning in a sea of red ink owed to the order, realized that the most efficient way to balance his ledgers was to systematically eliminate his creditors. Under the cover of an autumn night, his soldiers moved with a calculated precision, arresting knights across the kingdom on charges of heresy, desecration, and rituals that defied the medieval mind. The king sought a total victory, a complete seizure of the legendary wealth that had made the Templars the world's first international bankers. However, when the dust settled and the inquisitors began their grim work, a haunting realization set in. The prize was gone. The heartbeat of the order had already escaped. At the port of La Rochelle, those 18 ships laden with the order's archives, relics, and gold did not leave behind a trail for the king's scouts to follow. They left only the salt spray and a lingering question that has persisted for 7 centuries. How does a fleet of that magnitude simply vanish into the ether? To understand the survival of the Templars is to understand the geography of defiance. While France burned with the fires of the Inquisition, the survivors looked toward the fringes of the known world, seeking a sanctuary where the Pope's reach was short and the local lords were in desperate need of elite steel. Their eyes turned toward the rugged, storm-beaten landscape of Scotland. At the time of the Templar Purge, Scotland was a land of outlaws. King Robert the Bruce was under excommunication by the Church and embroiled in a brutal war for independence against the English crown, for a group of warrior monks who had just been declared enemies of the state. Scotland was not just a hiding place, it was a fortress. It is here that the boundaries between history and legend begin to blur into a singular dark tapestry. In 1314, at the Battle of Bannockburn, the Scottish forces were facing certain defeat until a mysterious, highly disciplined cavalry force appeared on the horizon. They bore no traditional clan banners, yet they fought with the tactical brilliance of a professional military order. Their presence turned the tide of the war, securing Scottish freedom and providing the order with a debt of gratitude from a king who had nothing to lose by harboring the world's most wanted men. As the decades rolled forward, the memory of these armored monks began to weave into the fabric of a different kind of brotherhood. The survival of the Templars required a master class in invisibility. A knight in chainmail is a target, easily identified and broken by the machinery of the state. But a builder with a blueprint is an essential asset. Someone who can move across borders and gain access to the private chambers of the elite, the guilds of the stonemasons, the men who possess the secret knowledge of geometry and the architectural language of the great cathedrals, began to emerge as a new vessel for an ancient legacy. Under a cold Scottish moon in the mid-15th century, Rosslyn Chapel rose like a stone riddle frozen in time. Built by William Sinclair, a man whose ancestry was deeply intertwined with the Templar heritage, the chapel is less a place of worship and more a stone-carved enigma. Its pillars and arches are adorned with symbols that appear to predate the official founding of modern Freemasonry, yet they mirror its most sacred rituals with unsettling accuracy. The apprentice pillar, with its impossible spirals of vine and stone, seems to breathe with the weight of centuries-old knowledge. Every inch of the chapel whispers the same question: were the Templars truly gone, or had they simply learned to build in the dark? The transition from a military order to a philosophical society was not a matter of choice, but an act of strategic evolution. By the 1600s, the operative masonry, those who actually worked with stone, began to admit speculative members. These were the thinkers, the scientists, and the noblemen who sought a sanctuary for ideas that would be considered heretical by the religious authorities of the day. They adopted the Templar structure of strict hierarchies and coded handshakes, creating a clandestine network that could operate in plain sight. They traded their swords for the square and the compass, understanding that true power does not come from standing on a battlefield in white mantles, but from controlling the systems that make the battlefield possible. The official history of Freemasonry often points to the year 1717 and the formation of the Grand Lodge in London as the beginning of the craft. But many scholars suggest this was merely the moment the organization decided to step partially into the light. In 1737, the Chevalier Ramsay, a prominent Scottish Freemason, delivered an address that sent ripples through the courts of Europe. Standing before an audience of high-born nobles, his voice echoed like a prophecy. He claimed that the Freemasons were the direct descendants of the crusading knights who had sought to rebuild the Temple of Solomon. This wasn't merely a romantic claim of heritage. It was a declaration that the mission had evolved. The goal was no longer to guard the physical roads to Jerusalem, but to guard the intellectual and political foundations of a new world order. If we look closely at the fingerprints of history, the parallels between the Templar system and modern global structures are difficult to ignore. The Templars were the pioneers of a financial system that allowed a traveler to deposit funds in one city and withdraw them in another using a coded letter of credit. Today, our global financial networks operate on a level of complexity and discretion that echoes that ancient blueprint. The architecture of power in our modern cities, from the precise street layouts of Washington, D.C., to the monuments of London and Paris, frequently incorporates the same sacred geometry that the Templars allegedly recovered from beneath the Temple Mount. These are not merely aesthetic choices, they are the markers of a silent language, spoken by those who understand the hidden mechanics of influence. Critics often dismiss the Templar Masonic connection as a romantic myth, noting the lack of a smoking gun document that proves a continuous lineage from the last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay. But the very essence of a secret society is the erasure of the paper trail. To survive the wrath of kings, the Templars had to disappear entirely, blending their rituals so deeply into the guilds of the Masons that the two became indistinguishable. The legend of the temple remains the central obsession of both groups. While the original Knights took their name from the Temple of Solomon, where they were first headquartered, Freemasonry revolves around the symbolic rebuilding of that same temple within the character of the individual and the structure of society. Consider the timing of the Enlightenment, the era of revolution and reason that dismantled the absolute power of monarchs and the church. Many of the key figures who championed these changes were known members of the Masonic lodges. If the survivors of the 1307 Purge sought a long-term revenge against the institutions that betrayed them, they found it not through the violence of the sword, but through the quiet spread of ideas that eventually toppled the old world order. The New World itself became a vast canvas for these ideals. The foundational documents of modern democracy are steeped in the language of this philosophy, emphasizing a balance of power and a separation from religious dogma, the very things the Templars were once accused of seeking for themselves. The modern world is filled with echoes, where the past and present collide in unexpected ways. We see it in the high-profile meetings of global organizations and the persistent fascination with the concepts of hidden treasures. Whether it is the literal gold of the Knights or the metaphorical gold of ancient wisdom, the pursuit remains unchanged. The Templars may have ceased to exist as a military unit in the 14th century, but their blueprint for a global, influential network endured. They learned that to lead, one must move through the world like a ghost in the machine, influencing the direction of travel without ever being seen at the wheel. When we look at the vast cathedrals of the past and the cold glass towers of modern finance, we are looking at a continuum. The square and the compass are used to measure the world, to define its borders, and to build its future. If the survivors of the 1307 purge did indeed find refuge in the guilds of Scotland and England, they brought with them a secret more valuable than any physical hoard: the knowledge of how to endure through invisibility. The fleet that sailed into the mist at La Rochelle never truly docked. It simply changed its flag. The debate over the survival of the Templars often misses the larger point. Whether or not there is a direct bloodline, the spirit of the order lives on in any group that operates with a global vision, a secret hierarchy, and a dedication to a cause that transcends national borders. The mystery of the Freemasons and their Templar roots isn't just a matter for the archives. It is a question of who truly holds the levers of influence in our world today. We see the symbols every day, positioned in plain sight on our currency and in our architecture, waiting for those with the eyes to see the patterns. Some believe the treasure of the Templars is buried beneath a chapel in the Scottish Highlands or tucked away in the vaults of a Swiss bank. But perhaps the real treasure was the network itself, a brotherhood that could survive the wrath of the Inquisition and the passage of 700 years. By evolving into the Freemasons, the Templars didn't just survive, they thrived. They traded their armor for the business suit and the ceremonial apron, ensuring that their influence would be felt in every parliament and every cornerstone of the modern age. As the sun sets on the era of the open battlefield, the real conflicts have moved into the private assembly and the boardroom. The tactics have changed and the weapons have evolved, but the objective remains the same. The quest for a structured world guided by a select few is a narrative that has been written in the shadows for centuries. The Templars were the pioneers of this vision, and if the theories are correct, the Freemasons are the architects who brought it to life. The silence of the historical record is not an absence of evidence, but a testament to the success of the transition. A secret kept for 700 years is a secret that has become part of the foundation of our reality. We live in a world built by the hands of those who chose to remain nameless. Every time we walk past a building with a cornerstone dated by a different calendar, or use a financial system built on the principles of credit and trust established in the Middle Ages, we are interacting with a legacy that was supposed to have been extinguished in the 14th century. The question of whether the Templars became the Freemasons may never be answered with absolute certainty, and that is likely by design. In the world of high-stakes influence, the greatest weapon is the unknown. By lingering in the space between history and myth, they maintain an aura of invincibility. They are the guardians of the threshold and the silent observers of the human drama. As we peel back the layers of history, we find that the past is never truly gone. It is merely repurposed. The armor of the knight has been forged into the structure of the modern state. The rituals of the temple have become the protocols of the elite. The mystery remains an open wound in our understanding of power. We are left to wonder if we are the masters of our own destiny, or if we are merely living within a structure designed by the architects of a forgotten age. The Templars may have been erased from the official maps, but they carved their influence into the very fabric of society. Whether they are called the Order of the Temple or the Brotherhood of the Mason, the presence of the unseen hand is a chilling reminder that some organizations are too powerful to die. They simply wait, watch, and continue to build in the shadows of a world they helped create.